Thanks. They're for me.
I've already said a lot.
Thanks.
Did you ask for the
No, that's our dorm god. No, Barrett did.
That's pretty
There's 2 more seats.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could probably grab like another chair. Yeah. Chairs.
I think once the door closes.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming. I think you're going to enjoy this. It's going to be full of fireworks, I suspect. I'll try to prepare Eddie for this. It's interesting to think about this, what Eddie's going to be talking about, which is sort of the rise of the American poet. Several years back, I spent some time thinking about and reading about what Shakespeare in America, the way Shakespeare was taken up by the founding fathers, by the people like Lincoln. Lincoln loved Shakespeare, he knew all of Shakespeare. Even General Sherman, it turns out, loved Shakespeare. But there were riots in New York, over different productions of the same play, but Shakespeare was kind of all in all. But the problem with this, and obviously noble, full of Shakespeare. The problem was that Shakespeare was the English poet. Where was the American voice that would have some sort of authority that would, if not equal Shakespeare, at least in some way rival him and give us our own literature? So Eddie has been thinking about this for most of the year. We've been talking it through, and you're going to see where Eddie goes with this, and it's going to be fun. Okay, so
Thank you, Dr. Glenn, for the introduction. And thank you for being my advisor. And even though I had a firm desire to work with creepy Walt Whitman, you put up with me the whole time. Thank you, Dr. Cooper, for your remarks on my thesis. And thank you, Dr. Judd, for being my third panelist. And thank you all for being here. Let's begin with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
as there was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end.
Our Lady, Seat of Wisdom.
Pray for us.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. In 1835, Alexis de Tocqueville published his work, Democracy in America, in which he noted his observations and comments on the effects of democracy on American culture. Regarding the new nation's poetic capacity, Tocqueville boldly wrote, "The Americans have no poets." This first generation of American poetry, writing around the time of the publication of Democracy in America and the years following, failed to achieve a truly American poetic voice. The answer to this is that democracy, as Tocqueville points out, shifts the focus of the poet entirely. Poetry focuses on the ideal of an object, and this ideal is easier to see in the past, where the object's flaws are hidden, and no one knows it as it truly is. Aristocracy naturally dwells in the past, in lineages and bloodlines. Democracy, on the other hand, gives all men an equality of conditions. It puts them on the same level. It no longer matters what your father's name is or what bloodline you're from, but rather who you are now and who you can become. The past is in the past, and the ideal is in the now and the future. A question naturally arises from this. Who then is the American poet, and when will he make himself known? Through the writings of Alexis de Tocqueville and Ralph Waldo Emerson, I will attempt to provide a glance at the nature of the American poetic voice. And from this, it will become clear that Walt Whitman is the first to utter this voice in his barbaric Yawp. And I will then proceed to move on to the poetry of the 20th century and see how this American voice progresses and how it slowly refines itself with the poets William Carlos Williams, Allen Ginsberg, and Sylvia Plath. After denying the poetic presence in America, Tocqueville gives us what he thinks the poet will look like. He says that rather than portraying a world full of magic and fairies, the American poet, quote, sees the American people advancing across the wilderness, draining swamps, straightening rivers, peopling the solitude, and subduing nature. Poetry now lies in the American man's everyday life and actions, coupled with his individuality. Tocqueville also says that the American poet will raise the soul, man's inner self, above all the rest, for the soul is his truest self. In agreement was Ralph Waldo Emerson, the famous New England transcendentalist. Though himself a notable poet, Emerson considered his poetry and that of his contemporaries to lack the necessary qualities of the American poet, which he describes in one of his essays titled The Poet. This Emersonian poet is a product of the American democratic thought